Hi, this is Craig. Today we're going to talk about self-assessment. That so as our cartoon shows, that people often use self-deprecation as a means of fishing for compliments. Come on, give us a tune. No thanks, I'm really not that good. Occasionally, it's wholly based on accurate self-assessment. Well, hopefully, we're not going to use self-deprecation in our own self-assessment, but we are going to be honest with ourselves. This is the self-assessment process. Self-assessment inherently is a reflective process. Before we can self-assess, we must begin with reflection on our own practice, thinking deeply about our strengths and weaknesses, not as a general education teacher, but as a special education teacher who is responsible for the learning of a child with disability. To do this, we have the self-assessment tool, which is based on CEC teaching standards. Now we have both indicators to reflect on and to reflect on our teaching behavior. We need to be honest about our practice. We can do this by providing evidence for what we know. Think, how do I know that I can do a given skill? How have I demonstrated that outcome? Once we write down our first draft of our self-assessment, we must get it and make sure we've rated ourselves correctly. Finally, we make a plan for change and the process starts over. So why self-assess? So I think Marzano, Pickering, and Pollock captured these ideas about self-assessment rather poignantly and got some of the main ideas from goal setting, that how we can look at different strategies. And then finally, I think probably the most important one is that it motivates us as teachers by creating ownership and commitment to our own teaching and learning. These four principles are essential to understanding the process of self-assessment and reflection. That reflection helps us look deeper inside ourselves. It helps us think more about practice. And it helps us enhance our knowledge and our learning experience for future situations. So this is a piece of the self-assessment, and it's an example item that is actually one of the examples that I provided to you. When you use this tool, you need to be specific to use the tool correctly. If you're identifying yourself as proficient, be very specific. That say exactly why you think yourself proficient. And if you can't do that, maybe you need to move yourself into emergent or needs improvement. There's nothing wrong with needing improvement. The whole goal of this process is actually to find areas of improvement and to work on them so you are better at the end. All the practices that you use in this must be evidence-based. It doesn't do any good to improve yourself in practices that are not evidence-based and don't improve student outcomes. Finally, this self-assessment is not about your skills as a general educator, and you should only consider practices as it relates to children with disability.